लफ्ज़ चुराते हो, लफ्ज़ चुराते हो, लफ्ज़ चुराते हो, लफ्ज़ चुराते हो। इनसे सोचना सीख रहा हूँ, इनसे बोलना सीख रहा हूँ, इनसे जीना सीख रहा हूँ। तुमने भी तो सीखा होगा। इन लफ्जों का कर्ज है तुम पर, इनकी इज्जत फर्ज है तुम पर। इन लफ्जों का कर्ज है तुम पर, इनकी इज्जत फर्ज है तुम पर। तस्वीरों पर अपनी धुंधली छाप लगाना क्या, ख्वाब तुम्हारे थोड़ी है, इनकी ताबीर चुराना क्या। देखिए पैसों की खातिर आखिर जुर्म कमाना क्या। जुर्म कमाते हो, लफ्ज़ चुराते हो। इन लफ्ज़ों का कर्ज है तुम पर, इनकी इज्जत फर्ज है तुम पर। इन लफ्ज़ों का कर्ज है तुम पर, इनकी इज्जत फर्ज है तुम पर। देखो प्यारी सी ये किताबें हम सब का अरमान, इन पे बैठ के उड़ते जाए, घूमे सारा जहां। इल्म हमारा नूर है, हमसे रोशन पाकिस्तान। शमा बुझाते हो, लफ्ज़ चुराते हो। लफ्ज़ों का कर्ज है तुम पर, इनकी इज्जत फर्ज है तुम पर। इन लफ्ज़ों का कर्ज है तुम पर, इनकी इज्जत फर्ज है तुम पर। इन लफ्ज़ों का कर्ज है तुम पर, इनकी इज्जत फर्ज है तुम पर। इन लफ्ज़ों का कर्ज है तुम पर, इनकी इज्जत फर्ज है तुम पर।
Take it off the hook.
Today's webinar is Flying High with SNC, Maintaining Standards in Oxford Progressive English. Chris Jacques has trained teachers in the UK, the Middle East, China, India, and Pakistan. Since 1988, he has been based in England, working as a teacher, teacher trainer, examiner of English, and textbook writer at primary and secondary levels. Chris has an MA in Modern Languages from Cambridge University and an MA in Applied Linguistics from Reading University. and Eleanor Watts. Eleanor Watts has been a teacher for 40 years. Over the past 35 years, she has also written more than 50 primary school textbooks and trained teachers in many countries, including Pakistan. She has an MA in English Literature from Oxford University and PGCE and MA in English Teaching from London University. As a child, she spent 4 happy years at school in Pakistan, and she now lives in the UK. Over to you both. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Hello, my name is Chris Jacques and I'm the author of Oxford Progressive English Books 3 to 5. Today's webinar will be run by my colleague Eleanor Watts. Eleanor is the author of Oxford Progressive English Levels Introductory 1 and 2. Over many years, Eleanor and I have greatly enjoyed writing textbooks for Oxford University Press, Pakistan. And today, it's a great opportunity to present to you the revised edition of Oxford Progressive English, or OPI for short. What has changed over the years? Many things. First, methodology. That is to say, ideas of current classroom practice. Second, language. The English language is always changing, especially vocabulary, idioms, and English usage. In addition, technology changes, so we need new books to describe this and illustrate the new devices. Next point, we write textbooks to teach, educate, inform, and we hope interest and entertain our students. That means new topics. Finally, and this is something Eleanor will focus on during this webinar, we have the 2020 Single National Curriculum for Pakistan, or SNC for short. So, how does OPI fit the SNC? Eleanor will explain with lots of examples. Over to you, Eleanor.
Well, thank you, Chris, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Now, this may seem a very strange request at the beginning of a webinar, but I'm going to ask you to shut the door of your room. I'd like you to join in with some of the activities, and I don't want you to be embarrassed in front of your mother-in-law. I'm going to shut mine now. Now, when you see "try this" in red, I would like you to be ready to do some activities, move around, and imagine that you are a child learning online, as indeed many of our children are learning these days. You'll also be asked to answer some questions in the chat. Please keep your answers brief. Finally, please don't write questions in the chat until the Q&A at the end. The webinar is very fast moving and I don't want you to miss anything. All slides will be sent to you afterwards, just in case you do. Now, an outline of the webinar. The SNC outlines very clearly the core skills or competencies of English language teaching. Fortunately, OPI already taught these in a graded and comprehensive way. But as Chris has said, we have made some changes. In particular, we've added themes, sub-themes, and text types. We've also added more guidance on classroom management, and we've boosted the assessment. Now, I'm going to do a whistle-stop tour, showing you how OPI follows it. Text in blue is copied directly from the Single National Curriculum. Starting off, we're going to break the ice, and I'm going to ask some of my colleagues at OUP to help me here, but I want you to join in too. If I say "Simon says" before a command, please do or mime what I say. That's why I told you to shut the door, so you don't feel embarrassed in front of your family. If I don't say "Simon says," please don't do it. If you do, you're out and must cross your arms like this. If you do the wrong action or do it too slowly, you're also out. The last ones in are the winners. Now, are you ready, my colleagues? Can you? Yes, there you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Can we see you? I will need to see you.
Yes.
Excellent. Now here we have Amina, Tuba, Seema, and Uzma. Now you're going to play Simon Says. Be careful. Simon Says, touch your head. Done, everybody. Simon Says, wave your hands. Oh, well done. Both hands. Excellent. Very good. Hands, not hand. Simon Says, eat a banana. Now, I'm sorry, Amina, but you ate your banana with the peel on. That's not how we eat a banana. First, you peel it. I'm sorry, you're out. Please, will you put your hands over your shoulders to show me you're out? Simon Says, clean your teeth. Now, open your mouth. Open your mouth. Out, out, Uzma. I didn't say Simon Says. Put your hands over here. Thank you. Simon Says, drink a hot cup of tea. Oh, what's happened to you all? You're not drinking. Oh, you're actually drinking a hot cup of tea, Seema. Very good. Well done. And you're miming it, which is fine, Tuba. Simon Says, point up. Well, the first one to do that was Seema. Very quick, Seema. Very good. I'm afraid to say, Tuba, you're out, and Seema is the winner. Well done, Seema. Now, if you won, well done. If you didn't, don't worry. We all have to learn to be wrong, and that's a part of learning. Now, could you please, can we please return to my screen now? And my slideshow. Can you all see my slideshow? Could you just let me know?
Yes.
Can you see? Okay, fantastic. Now, we've had some fun, and I hope all of your classrooms are fun too, but now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the single national curriculum, which asks for high standards of literacy and competency in the English language. I hope that OPI has always done that. It asks that texts provide a context for the teaching of the micro skills, and every single unit in OPI is based around a text, and all the grammar, vocabulary, punctuation, and writing skills are based on that reading text and the text type of the reading text, so that the children are able to contextualize what they learn. Thus, listening and speaking and reading and writing are all integrated into a single unit. Children acquire knowledge through listening and reading because we have a variety of listening texts, which are given at the back, and also reading texts of many different types. Some are fiction, some are non-fiction. Children also learn to use the productive skills of speaking and writing through speaking tasks and writing tasks, which again are integrated with the text type of the unit. And throughout, we use interactive teaching and learning practices, and these are detailed in the teaching guide. Now, let's go through the competencies one by one as they come in the single national curriculum. So listening and speaking is the first, and because it's very important that children hear correct models of spoken English, we provide audio recordings of all the phonic tables and songs at lower levels, and all the reading texts in all 6 books of the course. Downloading instructions are given inside the front cover of every student's book. We really hope that you as teachers will be able to use the audio recordings in class to supplement your teaching of pronunciation, stress, and intonation. Children can also take the audio recordings home and listen to them and practice there. Now, Here is the first standard of competency 1, and it is: students understand and articulate acceptable pronunciation, stress and intonation patterns. Now, one of the key features of OP is that it is a phonic course. OP 0, from the introductory to 2, systematically teaches the patterns of phonics like this. Now, I'm going to ask you in your room to try this as if you were a child, and I would like to you to point to the picture as you repeat after me. Tea. Ice cream. Point to the picture. Meat. Leaf. Eating. Reading. Now, as the children repeat, they hear how the word is pronounced, but they don't just do it automatically. They have to think, what does this word mean? And point to the picture as they go. At higher levels, at OP 3 to 5, pronunciation and spelling are still taught, but within the unit and specifically within lesson 2. Now try this little pronunciation exercise. I'm going to say these words, and I would like you to note down the 2 which have a different pronunciation for the letter O. Are you ready? Note 2 words in the chat. Brother, mother, son, honey, nothing, Monday, rocket, monkey, donkey, money. Now, looking at the chat, I can see none of you are fooled. You've all written rocket and donkey, because in those 2 words, the sound, the O letter makes the sound O instead of A. We also teach pronunciation through the talk boxes, which are symbolized by that little speech bubble. And here is a task from OP 3. And children are asked to read their questions aloud after they've composed them. And they're asked to make sure that their voice goes up after a yes/no question and down at the end of the answer. Is that a tiger? No, it's a dog. So that kind of pronunciation is taught at all the levels of OP. But in the first few books, we have quite a few action songs, and these again are recorded on the audio recording. Please, will you lose your inhibitions and be ready to sing and do the actions with me? If you already know OP, you probably know the tune, but try and sing it with me. Are you ready? Teddy says, stand up. Teddy says, sit down. Teddy says, stand up. Teddy says, turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around, turn, turn, turn around. Teddy says, point up. Teddy says, point down. Teddy says, point up. Teddy says, turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around, turn, turn, turn around. And of course, when you have the book, you will also have the audio recording, which will sing it much better than I do. Moving on now. Standard 2 of listening and speaking. Students use appropriate social and academic conventions of spoken discourse with individuals and in groups, in both informal and formal settings. Now, there are listen and speak sections in every unit, and in OP 0 to 2, there is a language teaching game for every unit, which practices informal spoken language in context. Now, I want you to try this one, and I will be watching what you write in the chat, as many as I can see at any rate. Now, it's a game similar to I Spy, which I'm sure you all know, But this is phonic I spy. So you're not talking about the letter names, you're talking about the phonic sounds at the beginning of each word. So here we go. Are you ready? I can see in front of me something beginning with B. Amina says, is it a hat? Well, you're right, Amina. Hat begins with the sound. Oh, did I say B or did I say? I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong example. Let's try do something different from what's in the book. Let's go. I can see in front of me something beginning with and Nida says, is it a girl? Well, I can see a girl, but girl doesn't begin with Tuba says, is it a head? Well done. I can see a head, but it's not what I'm thinking of. Now, Uzma says, is it hair? Well done, Uzma. It is indeed hair. Well done. Doesn't matter if you're wrong. We learn from making mistakes. Now, here's a listening exercise from later on in the book, and I'd like you to try this one too. I'm going to give you some clues in the listening exercise about these flags. And I want you to identify which one. Again, please will you write it in the chat. It has a white stripe in the middle. Tuba says Canada. Good guess, Tuba, because Canada is the one with the red stripes at the side, the white stripe in the middle, and the red leaf. Now, it's not that one. I'm going to give you another clue. It's a flag with a white stripe in the middle and a yellow circle. Oh, they're all coming in. Argentina, yes. Notice that in these listening exercises, we require children to listen to the whole exercise before they write their answers. Listening requires very often more than one item. Now, let's look at another aspect of speaking and listening. Dialogues. At the higher levels, dialogues practice formal and informal speech in meaningful contexts, and every unit begins with a dialogue like this one, which introduces the theme and the vocabulary of the unit that follows. Now, this is where we move on to the text, which has been prepared for by the listening exercises that we've just been talking about. Standard 1 of reading and critical thinking skills is students discover and understand and engage with a variety of text types through tasks which require multiple reading and thinking strategies for comprehension, fluency, and enjoyment. Now, at all the levels, we have the text type at the beginning of each reading text. Here's one from OP5, and it's an information text about ice cream. Here are two from OP2, both fiction. One's a realistic story, one's a fairy tale, so that children get used to thinking this is a text which is of a particular type for a particular purpose right from the start. As well as that, as asked by the Single National Curriculum, we have pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading tasks, which develop a variety of reading strategies. In Unit 2 of Book 2, we've got a before reading task, which asks the children to look at the pictures and guess what they think will happen next. After reading, they discuss whether they guessed right. In the Elves and the Shoemaker, we've got a while reading task, which was who made the shoes? Now that can be developed into a kind of game by the teacher because as they read, the children can be ready to put up their hands the moment they find out who made the shoes. And if you've read the story, of course, you'll know it was the elves. Comprehension, which are all post-reading tasks, they include a variety of types of post-reading question for detail, gist, fluency, and enjoyment. So here's a task from level 3. Question 1 is about detail, and the children fill in the blanks with one of the words in the box that fits the detail of the story. Question 2 is a gist question where you understand the general meaning of the story. And this is the one about how the rhino got its skin. And the key point is that this character, the rhino, has very bad manners. If you don't understand that, you don't understand the story. Fluency is something that the teacher has to work on, with the help, of course, of the audio recording, because all stories are recorded on our audio recording. But children need to practice reading aloud, preferably with a parent as well, but only the teacher can teach fluency. Enjoyment questions are exemplified by 5 and 6. Children have to decide what they like and don't like about the story, and that's up to them. Now, standard 2 of reading and critical thinking emphasizes the critical thinking. We don't just read for understanding, we read because we want to think about what's in the text. Students read and analyze literary text to seek information, ideas, and enjoyment, and to relate their own experiences to those of common humanity as depicted in literature. Now, the comprehension exercises explore the information and ideas in a range of fiction and non-fiction texts. These texts are designed to be age appropriate, and many relate to the experience of modern children in Pakistan. All texts are read dramatically by professional actors in the audio recordings, so they're quite a lot of fun. In the earlier levels, pre-reading and while reading tasks point children to the pictures, which tell a very large part of the story when children are learning to read. So, for example, in these 2 pictures from OP1, it's a story about a little boy who is so obsessed with his tablet that he doesn't help his younger sister play with her teddy, and he doesn't help his elder sister pick up the toys because he's too busy on his tablet. Now, if you don't look at the pictures, you won't know that in picture 1, there's a monster's tail just beside, peeping round the door. And in picture 2, there is a monster's head peeping round the door. So from an early age, from level 1, children are learning to infer meaning from the text. Talk boxes are present in every text, and they develop higher order thinking skills, which are required by the Single National Curriculum, and stimulate children to relate the texts they read to their own experiences. Questions like, what do you like or dislike about the story? Role play, act out the story in class, in your own words, of course. Inquiry, learn to write your name and phone number. Go home, ask your mum and dad, what is my phone number? How do I spell my name? Internet research, find out and teach your friends about an animal. This is, of course, after they've read about several animals in the book, and then we give suitable websites for them to find out the information. Now, let's move on to competency 3, vocabulary. Students enhance their vocabulary for effective communication. Lesson 2 of every unit in OP focuses on words. Here's an example from OP4, and it's a unit on space. This vocabulary exercise prepares the children for the vocabulary that they will need when they access the text. It leads on to practice. Here you've got the same vocabulary practiced in a meaningful context, not just in sort of random sentences, but related sentences which are integrated with the theme of the unit. Finally, they can take the vocabulary that they've learned, for example, the word planet, is contextualized in the reading texts that follows, and later, as we'll discuss, in the writing tasks. Vocabulary teaching is assisted by a mini dictionary, which is at the end of each book, and the complexity of the mini dictionary increases as we move up the levels. We've got an example here from book 1, where we have the key themes of the book as a picture dictionary. So we've got the rooms of the house, we've got transport, clothes, parts of the body, animals, and so on. Whereas at a higher level, this is level 5, we've got a proper alphabetically organized mini dictionary. It gives the word, the part of speech, we've got nouns, adjectives and verbs here, the definition, and finally the unit that you'll find that word in. Of course, in English, words are used differently in different contexts. So, for example, the word handy can mean useful, as it does in Unit 2, but elsewhere it could mean that you're good at something. So we define the word as it appears in the unit. Moving on to Standard 2 of Competency 3, that is about grammar and structure. Students understand punctuation, syntax, that's grammar, grammatical functions, that's what we use language for, rules, the grammatical rules, and application, means how we apply the grammar to our own production of either speaking or writing. And it's to develop accuracy in our spoken and written communication. Now, at levels 1 and 2, children learn the rules of punctuation and grammar, and then they practice the rules. So, for example, here we have a punctuation exercise from OP2, focusing on capital letters for the names of people and places. Children then go on to practice that rule that they've learned, that you put capitals at the beginning of names of people and places, with a simple form. So they're beginning to move away from the rule to something useful that they could use in life while filling in a form. But of course, city, country, teacher's name, your name, all will need to begin with a capital letter. At the higher levels, in OP3 to 5, we have study corner boxes, and these explain the rules of punctuation and grammar simply and clearly, followed by lively examples. So here's an example of a study corner from OP4. It's on the past continuous tense for activities in progress. And we have a simple example. While he was eating his sandwich, a bird took it. Now, after we've had, I don't know if you're familiar with the PPP model of English language teaching. It's presentation, practice, and production. This is the first step, it's presentation, explaining the rule. Then we go on to the second P, practice. Now here they're practicing the past continuous tense in an integrated, meaningful passage, not a series of unrelated sentences. Let's see if you can do this with me. I'm going to give you a little pause, and I'd like you to provide the right form of the verb, whether it's past, simple past, or past continuous. Are you ready? I was sleeping under a tree when it started to rain. So I ran into the town. While I was running down the street, an alien took my photo. As the alien was taking my photo, a monster with 6 legs came towards me. I ran into a park and jumped into the lake. The monster could not swim. While I was swimming in the lake, a fish bit my foot. Well done to those of you who practiced it with me. Now, we've done the presentation in the little rule box. We've done the practice, and now we've got a targeted writing exercise where children will almost certainly use the simple past and the past continuous, but it'll be more open, creative writing. So it's the production phase of the PPP model. Here they're asked to finish a diary about space in their own words. Here's the example. While we were coming back to Earth, we passed the moon. So we're going to move on now to writing, not guided, but more creative, academic, transactional, fluent, accurate, focused, and purposeful, and shows an insight into the writing practice. That's what we're required to do by the Single National Curriculum. In OP, children do writing tasks at the end of each unit, building on what they've learnt earlier. They build on the listening and speaking tasks that they did in section 1. They build on the themed vocabulary and phonics that they did in section 2. The text types that they've read in section 3, and the grammar and punctuation rules that they've done in section 4. So they're never asked to write from zero. They've always been given a solid foundation of listening, speaking, reading and writing, vocabulary and grammar. Now, it's difficult for children who don't use English outside school to write. I guess that writing, free writing, is the most difficult task you have as teachers, especially when your children don't hear much English outside school, because school provides them with their only model of a language. And it's not like writing in the mother tongue, where they're hearing lots of rich vocabulary in their environment all the time. Necessarily in a second language, it's going to be more difficult to write. So children need writing frames. At a lower level, we've got a writing frame for the preparation that we did on using capital letters in names, but within the context of a paragraph. Again, we're using the spiral approach of the Single National Curriculum, revising, reinforcing what we've taught at every step. At higher levels, writing frames are still provided, but more able children are encouraged to express their own ideas creatively. And this is one that I'd like you to try. I'm going to give you a little while to think of your own ideas, because I want you to try to be clever or funny in your boasts. I'm giving the writing frame. I know somebody who is so, adjective, that. Now, the example is, I know a girl who is so tiny that she can slide under the front door. Now, be a bit creative and write your own ideas in the chat. Now. Oh, now Dubba has a very nice one. I know a boy who is so clever that he can say his 47 times table. It's a nice one. Neither says, I know a woman who is so forgetful she leaves her hairbrush in the fridge. Sounds a little bit like me. I'm rather forgetful too. So what we're doing at higher levels is encouraging children to play with language and be creative in their own way. Now we're moving on to the fifth competency, and in a way it's the most important one. Students develop ethical and social attributes and values relevant to a multicultural and civilized society. Now, we aren't just language teachers, we are also teachers of human beings. And in my view, it's very important, even if I'm planning a lesson on the past continuous tense, if children have come back from break after a fight, I'm not going to leave it. I'm not going to say, oh, well, that's nothing to do with me. I'm a language teacher. I'm a teacher of children, and I'll talk to them about it. Get them to try and understand the point of view of everybody who was there. Try and help them to understand that violence doesn't solve problems, and that the way through discord and conflict is to talk about it and understand the other person. Now, that is our function, and I'm sure you'd all agree with me, as teachers. And I'm very glad that it's in the single national curriculum. Now, we try to do this through the book. Of course, you're going to do it as teachers all the time, but through the book, we try to help you do that. Firstly, through talk boxes, which help people, helping encourage children to help others in our lives and in wider society. At levels 1 and 2, we've got the activity to pick up litter in the playground. Remembering, of course, that when we do good things for other people, we also need to look after ourselves. So it's important to stress that we need to wash our hands for our own protection. Now, the second one from book 2 is getting children to brainstorm ideas about how they can help their teacher. I think we need to remember that we often enjoy helping others more than we enjoy being helped. And I'm sure your pupils love to come into school with a little bunch of flowers for you, or they love to put their lunch boxes in the tray. Children love to feel that they are important members of society, and we need to encourage them in that. Moving on to ethical issues that are raised by the text, and we tease these out in the comprehension questions. Here's an example from OP4. It follows a story where a boy doesn't behave very well, and instead of just saying he did wrong, I think it's important for children to think about what you can do after you've done something wrong, how you can try and make it better. So think to yourself now, if you do something wrong, should you explain? Well, it wasn't my fault because, you know, I was busy doing something else. Or apologize. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. Or should you do both? Should you try to explain your point of view, but also understand the other person's point of view and how your bad behavior has affected them? I think you should do both. Now, this is key to the whole course. The values of cooperation, tolerance, peace, sharing, getting along together, social cohesion, sustainable development. We talk a lot about the environment, patriotism, global citizenship are emphasized throughout the whole of OP. Most texts are set in Pakistan because children need to start from where they are, and this is our environment. But each level has at least one fiction and non-fiction text from another culture to remind us that we all share, wherever we live in the world, common humanity, and we all depend on each other. Themes and sub-themes are listed in detail in the single national curriculum, and we are asked that they should nurture ethical and social attitudes relevant to the Pakistani context and create an awareness, tolerance, and understanding of global audiences. Now, here's a simple little story from one of the earlier books, and it's about a boy who is bullying his cousin. He takes her teddy bear, throws it into a tree. He won't share his tablet with her. He says she can't do things because she's just a girl. He drinks her milk and sweets. And all the time, their grandfather has been watching. And at the end of the story, he takes away the boy's tablet and talks to them about it. And after they've talked, he asks the boy to share his milk and sweets and to remember that boys and girls are equal in the family. And the little boy then goes on to offer his tablet to his cousin. So here we are addressing those themes of ethics and values, fair play, peaceful coexistence, sharing, gender equality, boys and girls equal. It goes on throughout the course, even in the grammar exercises. So here's an exercise on should and shouldn't, but the importance of planting trees, protecting wildlife, sustainable lifestyle choices, and avoiding littering are all addressed in this simple language exercise on should and shouldn't. Text types. Now, I've already touched on text types. We know that they're written for a variety of purposes using different forms, known as text types or genres, as they used to be called. And in OP, we have a wide variety of narrative texts, such as stories, poems, play scripts, and so on. Factual texts, such as news reports, maps, recipes. Argumentative and persuasive texts, such as debates, letters to the editor, essays, posters, and so on. And finally, texts for interpersonal and transactional communication, such as the dialogues that begin every unit in levels 3 to 5, letters starting with informal ones, moving on to formal ones, greetings cards at the early levels, emails at the higher levels, and interviews. Classroom methodology. Now, this curriculum requires a blend of interactive and skill-based methodologies. And this is where the teaching guide comes in. It lists detailed procedures for interactive teaching methods with opportunities for individual, pair, and group work. And it advises on key teaching skills and extension work. In OP 0 to 2, there is a language teaching game for each unit so that learning is not just interactive, but contextualized in real situations. There are detailed sample lesson plans. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about in detail is assessment. And the Single National Curriculum quite rightly distinguishes between formative assessment and summative assessment. Formative assessment is an ongoing process. It helps the teacher to assess students' learning and to improve his or her own teaching accordingly. And we all do formative assessment almost all the time we're in class. But the book provides us with a means of checking out whether the children have got what we've taught them. Every level of OP has quarterly revision units which revise what's been taught in the previous units. Here's an example, looking at dialogues and types of materials and vocabulary and getting them to complete forms. The revision unit is then followed by a test which tests the different competencies of English. So here we have functions, some questions testing functions, how we use the language for a purpose, sentences, which is how we use the grammar, and words, that is vocabulary. And as the teacher marks the test, she can notice which children are falling down in particular areas, and indeed which areas the whole class is weak on. Then she can fill in a table which is in the teaching guide, a record of quarterly assessments, and that enables teachers to chart development over the year and revise problem areas so that if, for example, the test shows that a lot of children haven't got the past continuous tense, she can then reteach it. Now, if in that formative assessment she has developed the weaknesses, maybe given some special attention to those pupils who are weaker in a particular area, those who've done well can then move on to an extension section. And these are new for OP. They provide reading and language tasks to challenge the more able. If there's too much in the book, or if it's too difficult for the children, don't do the extension sections. They will follow the single national curriculum if they complete the main part of the book. If, however, they've completed what they've done relatively easily, then you can move on to the extension. And this extension section follows the UK national curriculum. Here's an example from level 1 with new phonic patterns which aren't in the single national curriculum, but some children will be capable of that. Reading. There's extended reading in every level. Able children develop higher order thinking skills with additional reading texts, which can be left out if the children if you're not managing to cover the course in the given time, or if it's too difficult. If they are finding it challenging and easy, then move on to the additional reading. And every book has extra text for extended reading, because we know that readers are nearly always good at language. Finally, summative assessment. The purpose of summative assessment is to know how much learning has taken place. The end of year test assesses the final achievement of each child in all the competencies. It's in the teaching guide so that students cannot be tutored for it, and so you know what they really have understood and haven't understood. The results can then be given to parents and to next year's teacher. Now, quick recap to summarise. Oxford Progressive English follows the philosophy, competencies and learning outcomes of the single national curriculum. It also extends the more able with learning outcomes from the UK national curriculum. The teacher guides and audio recordings support the teacher at every step, and we really hope that you'll enjoy using it. Now, it's over to you. We've got about 10 minutes left for questions and answers. I'd like you to take a quiet minute now to note anything that puzzled you in my talk. Could you put brief questions in the chat, and I'll try and answer as many of them as I can. Thank you very much for your participation, and
There are a lot of questions on improving spoken skills of students. So are there any ideas that you can share for those children who are weak and who are shy? Maybe they don't have the confidence.
I lost you there.
That you can share for spoken English. Yes.
Yes. I would say games like Simon Says are extremely useful, because you can play Simon Says with 100 children and they all have to do it. When you were playing with me, you all had to do the actions, and I was able to see who could and couldn't understand by your responses. Then I can gently encourage those who are shy to take part, and sometimes they're the ones who do the best. So language teaching games, that's one of the first things I'd say about encouraging children to talk. I don't know whether you do this, but I nearly always start my session with a feedback from them, and I get one child to talk about what's been happening in her or his life. and there's a child, a star of the day, if you like. And as you have a star of the day in turn, or maybe 2 stars of the day, it means you just can't leave out those shy children. Thirdly, I would say use what's going on in the classroom as a talking point. So make your classroom lively. Put up different pictures every day. Well, if not every day, every few days. Give them something different to think and talk about. I have a museum table at the front of my classroom, and I ask children to bring in interesting objects. They might be perfectly, might be toys, but I remember once a boy brought in a mortar and pestle, for grinding spices. And I was astonished. I said, why did you bring this in? Because it was rather heavy. And then he told me about all the things his mother does with it, and it's his favorite toy. He grinds all sorts of things, sand with it. So that's what I'd say to those who have problems with speaking and listening.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. I think you already talked about that in the session, and these are very useful tips for those who want to develop spoken skills in students. There's a question on the SNC, and it's how will the SNC, this is Huma Naz, and she's asking how will the SNC help to develop spoken language skills at primary level in Pakistan, because it's a second language for Pakistani schools. So would you like Kiran to answer that? Kiran, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Eleanor, do you want to answer this? I think you can as well.
Well, I have been talking a bit about spoken skills, and they are there. I mean, it's competency 1 of the SNC. A lot of that is about pronunciation. My own feeling is that standard 2 is the key one, and that is giving children contexts in which to talk and meaningful things to talk about. I don't worry too much about correctness. If they're talking and they make the odd slip, I'd probably just maybe repeat what they say in the correct English, but I wouldn't stop them and say, oh, you said I am living in a flat. I wouldn't stop them and say, look, you should say, I live in a flat, but I would just say, oh, so you live in a flat, do you? So really focusing on what they're saying, not how they're saying it, because otherwise they'll feel demotivated. Kiran, do you want to add to that?
Yes, sure. For some reason, my camera is not working, but I would have a go at it. So basically, as you have correctly mentioned, that the SNC has so many learning outcomes about pronunciation and spoken skills of students. And in my opinion, because speaking is a productive skill, it requires listening foremost. And OPE really speaks well in that direction, because OPE has audio recordings. And for that, all the users can access the audio recording with the inside front cover of the book, where there is this whole process mentioned that you have to go on OUP's website, enter your code and your username, and you would get all the audio recordings. And that's how you can improve listening first, which will very nicely lead students to pronunciation and spoken skills and all of it, and even reading and writing eventually. So I think it would help. Yeah.
Thank you, Elena and Kiran. The last question for today, Elena, is can we use our native language? This is by Hira Javed. She's saying, can we use our native language too while teaching an English concept? It is mostly prohibited, but I think in the initial stages it is necessary to make the students more familiar with the concept accurately. What do you say about that?
I totally agree. I have no objection to using the mother tongue. In fact, I think it's a tool that we're wasting if we, children come to school able to speak their mother tongue, and it's a tool for communication. I also don't think it's very healthy to tell children that they shouldn't use their mother tongue, because they should be proud of their mother tongue. They need to know that there are 2 ways of expressing the same feelings. We all have the same feelings as human beings, And we can do it in if we're lucky enough to speak 2 languages. Yes, and if a child doesn't understand that this is a watch, what do you need to do? If you haven't got a picture or an actual watch, you say what it is in the mother tongue. I have no objection to that at all. Of course, we do want to get children using the language, but if we follow the PPP model of presentation, practice, and then production, it should be relatively easy.
I agree with you, Eleanor. I think even further, you know, after the initial stage also it does help. I said that was the last question, but there's another question. If we can, you know, you can just elaborate a little bit on how to improve creative writing skills in students, or how to make them more creative. You know, creativity in students. How can we? Are there any strategies to enhance creative skills in students?
Yes, I would say the stimulus is all important, and that stimulus often involves surprise. And sometimes we need to be ready to do the unexpected thing. For example, if it's a windy day, take an opportunity to go outside into the playground, stand still and look at the trees, look at what's blowing in the wind, and look at the litter maybe blowing across the playground, to get the children to use their own experience to write. Because actually I think children can become wonderful writers because they are so observant, much more observant than adults. I would say get the children to focus on 1 or 2 things and use their experience, and use the element of surprise as well. Maybe bring in something unexpected, like say my dupatta. I could say, now this dupatta has had a very bad time this morning. It's wet. How do you think that happened? And then they can all guess how my dupatta got wet. And that frees their creativity. I don't usually have a problem getting children to be creative. It's adults who find difficulty in being creative, in my experience.
I agree with you, Ellen, and I think little ideas like this, like you just mentioned, the dupatta, little things actually spark more creativity in students, I guess, because they can relate to it more easily than talking about an alien in space, maybe. So yes, thank you so much, Elena. That was the last question. Thank you to Chris, Jacques, and Kiran for joining us today. It was, as usual, a pleasure to attend your session, Elena, and hope we have further sessions with you in the future too. Thank you.
At a teacher training in Islamabad many years ago, didn't I?
Yes, we met then, and I reminded you of it the first time we logged in for the dry run. It was a total pleasure for me once again, not just for face-to-face sessions, but also for the online ones. Absolutely. And you take care of yourself, Elena. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Chris as well and Kiran Shanawaz. I would like to request the participants to please take a minute and fill in the evaluation form. The link for it is in the chat box. Please, we value your feedback. We would like you to tell us about the sessions, and also join us tomorrow for a session on mathematics, which is concrete pictorial abstract. It'll be led by Shazi Asad, and she'll talk about equity and inclusivity in mathematics. So see you all tomorrow at 4 p.m. Till then, bye-bye. Allah Hafiz. Thank you, Elena. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.